The graduates each year elect one of their professors to address them on this final day, at their final day at the school. This year, the students selected Professor Phillip Swagel. Professor Swagel earned his PhD in economics from Harvard University. He served as Assistant Secretary for Economic Policy at the Treasury Department under President George W. Bush, and was responsible for analysis on issues including housing, financial markets, healthcare, pensions, and macroeconomic forecasts. Previously, Professor Swagel served as Chief of Staff and a Senior Economist at the White House Council of Economic Advisors, and as an economist at the International Monetary Fund and the Federal Reserve Board. He now teaches courses on international economics and macroeconomics. With great delight, I give you Professor Phillip Swagel.
Good. Thanks, Dinora, and thanks to all of you. It's really an honor and a pleasure to speak today. I want to say a few words first about our graduates, and I'll look up as I do that, and then inevitably I have to offer some advice, and so I'll look down at the graduates. Okay, so now, actually I'm not sure whether it's possible to absorb advice while wearing one of these things, but we will try, okay? So to the parents, to the families, what I tell people about the policy school is that our students want to save the world. Right? People ask, and I say, that's it. Our students want to save the world, and at least make it a better place, but they really want to save the world. Some want to do it here in the United States, working to improve healthcare, education policy, or even just making the government work better. Some will go back to their home countries. We have a great range of students from other countries, and some will represent the United States at the State Department, the Millennium Challenge Corporation, Commerce Department, USTR, other places around the world. One among you, who I see right in front of me, is very difficult to miss, has told me he's going to become president. You know who you are, and said he can make his project course on immigration reform, turn that into action. And I hope you succeed. You'll make our country a better place and our economy stronger. I also hear that Florida is a swing state, so you're in good shape. I've had the privilege to teach several members of our graduating class who, after today, will return to their service in the Air Force. And thank you, lieutenants, for protecting us, and may you also be protected. To all the graduates, let me just say on behalf of the entire faculty behind me that we are proud of you. We are proud of all of you. Okay, so now for the advice, which I guess I look down. All right, and you're allowed one sheet of notes for this. I've taught about half of you. Okay, so this advice is gathered from my experience working in the government, and Dinor told you about the various places I've been. And I was gonna say one day, perhaps I'll have another opportunity to follow this advice in the government. But I think given the events of this very strange political season, it's a good bet that's not going to happen the next 4 years. Okay, so the first advice is, good, everyone gets that, right? Having worked at the George W. Bush Treasury. All right, the first advice is from a colleague at the Treasury who, before coming to the Treasury, had a very successful career on Wall Street. And actually, that describes most of my colleagues at the Treasury, but I have in mind someone specific. It's Bob Steele, who is the number 3 at the Treasury when I was there. And Bob was remarkable in many ways, but what I took away was he had something nice to say about everyone and about the work they were doing. And even people who I would look at and say, those people weren't really doing that great a job, Bob had something nice to say about them, or some encouragement. And I once asked him why. And his answer was very simple. He said, people like to be praised, they don't like to be criticized. And so it seems simple, but I took away a lesson. If you want to motivate people, praising them for something lets them know that their efforts will be rewarded and appreciated. And Bob was really well liked, but he was also incredibly effective. His approach worked. So my advice is to find the good in what people are doing. If you're working with people who aren't getting the job done, or even people just with whom you disagree, and of course it's inevitable you're going to work with both types of people, try to stay positive. And one way to do it is to start by thinking about the goals you share. Focus on the goals And then think about, okay, how to reach those goals. But always stay positive, be constructive, solve problems, don't dwell on them, and don't waste time placing blame. Okay, so that's one. I have 3 pieces of advice. All right, my second piece, shorter, is related to the first one, but is very specific. So this is the practical part of graduation, and that's never send a negative email. All right, it's very specific. It's very difficult. Never. And even the passive-aggressive negative emails, don't send those either. Right. So you can write them, right? It feels good to write them, but don't send them. So, and the insight is that email is a really good way to have a fight, but is not a good way to solve a problem. And we all want you to go solve problems and make the world a better place, and you can't do that with negative emails. Okay, so that's number 2. My third and last advice is something that I am sure all of you have heard from us, from your professors, and that's to be clear and direct in communicating your ideas. So state your most important point first, and then make sure your bottom line is up front, right? You heard me say that all the time. And the really practical part is that when you're done, when you're done writing something, read it out loud, right? Do this and read it out loud. And it might sound kind of awkward if someone's in earshot of you, but trust me, it's the best way to make sure that your typos, the diction, that everything is right. And you can bet that I read these remarks out loud, and it really helped. It was I realized all the Trump jokes just didn't work, so they're all gone. And of course, I say that with tears. So, all right, let me end by reversing one piece of advice. Again, those of you who took my class understand the tears. Reversing one piece of advice many of you have heard from me before today. And I taught about half of you. And you might remember that in class, doing assignments, I told you steer clear of social concerns. I said, if you care about social justice, if you care about, I had this whole list of all the good things that you should care about. I said, I don't want to hear about it. I said, which is terrible, but I really wanted you to focus on macro. Right? I taught macroeconomics, and I want you to focus on macro. And this made sense as pedagogy, but now I want the opposite. Right? I urge you in the opposite direction. And as Bob said, as the dean said, we live in a very sharply divided society, and in a nation and a world facing big challenges. And I want you to tackle these challenges and heal our divisions. That's what we all want from you. And to do that, you'll have to have these social concerns at the very front of your mind. Okay, now fine, perhaps they will share some mental space with the ISLM diagram or the uncovered interest parity equations. I don't want you to forget those, right? Those economic tools. I urge you to retain and consult your notes from class. But please, also retain the idealism that brought you here and consult regularly with your passions and dreams. So I've admired your drive, your optimism, your achievement. Congratulations to all of you and to your families. And please, graduates of our School of Public Policy, go make the world a better place.